My name is Averylyn. I turned 26 the night my father looked me straight in the face and said, "You're just a burden." There was no cake, no card, just cold spaghetti and silence. Then they asked me to pack my things. No yelling, no big drama, just an ordinary cruelty delivered with quiet finality. So I left, with nothing but a backpack and my laptop. And I didn't cry. But what they forgot, every credit card they used, every utility account, every line of credit tied to the family name, was in my name. That night, while they watched TV thinking they'd finally cut me loose, I logged in, and I froze everything. Before I take you into what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. Have you ever been told you were disposable by your own family? Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment if this sounds too familiar. Let's walk through the silence, together. The thing about being invisible is it doesn't happen all at once. It's slow. It creeps in, one small act at a time until you realize you've become nothing but a background function in someone else's life. By the time I was 19, I was already the one holding my family together. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. My dad lost his job during a downsizing wave at the construction firm where he'd worked for over a decade. Around the same time, he got hit with a heart condition that landed him in the hospital and off his feet for nearly a year. It was sudden, scary, and expensive. I was in community college at the time, part-time, studying business administration while working 20 hours a week at a local print shop. When the eviction notice came for the house, I was the one who called the landlord and negotiated an extension. I used what little I had in savings to buy us 30 more days. I remember crying in the bathroom at work afterward because that was all I had. And nobody even said thank you. That was the start. Soon after, I applied for a credit card in my name. My dad's credit had tanked, and my mom never had a credit profile of her own. They needed a card for groceries, gas, and emergencies. I opened it quietly and handed the physical card to my mom. "This is temporary," I said, "just until things get better." My dad overheard and scoffed. "What kind of job pays enough for that?" he muttered. I didn't answer. I just paid the minimums. When the cable bill fell behind, I switched it into my name to avoid disconnection. Same with the electric. Same with the water. By 21, I was managing 5 accounts in my name. Not just for me, for all of them. My mom called it helping the family. What it really was saving them. Over and over again. I got a full-time job as a junior accounts coordinator. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid steady. I started covering rent gaps when they couldn't make it to the first of the month. I bought groceries more often than not. When Evan, my younger brother, crashed his car freshman year of college, guess whose credit got used for the down payment on the new one? Mine. They said he needed it to get back on track, that he was going places and just going through a phase. Evan flunked out 2 semesters later. No one brought that up again. Instead, they focused on me. Why I was always so tired. Why I didn't dress up more. Why I never had a boyfriend. "Maybe if you smiled more," my dad once said at dinner, "people would like being around you." I looked up from the meal I had bought, cooked, and served. He was using my fork, drinking from a glass I had washed, and eating off a plate I had bought from Goodwill during my first apartment attempt, before I moved back home to keep the lights on. I didn't say a word. That became a pattern. I stayed quiet through Evan's unemployment phase, through my dad's passive-aggressive jokes, through my mom's careful silence every time I tried to voice my exhaustion. "Don't stir the pot," she'd say, as if my needs were a threat to their balance. At 24, I baked myself a birthday cake. Funfetti, the kind with the neon sprinkles and the fluffy white frosting. No one remembered. Evan had wrecked his second car the night before. My dad was busy yelling at the insurance company. My mom was microwaving leftovers and forgot I was even home. I took one bite of that cake alone in the kitchen, then dumped the rest into the trash. At 25, I didn't bother baking. My dad told me he wasn't in the mood for celebrations, and my mom made spaghetti with no sauce because we were cutting back. They bought Evan a brand new laptop a week later. The detachment didn't happen all at once. But after that, it started settling in. I stopped looking for praise, stopped explaining myself, stopped inviting them into my inner world. It wasn't rebellion. It was survival. I still helped, still paid, still answered the texts when they needed something. but I began to realize something important. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a resource, an extension of the house, a tool for solving problems, a fallback when Evan messed up again or Dad got behind on payments. And tools don't get love, they get used. So I stayed silent, but I started paying attention, and what I saw would change everything. I turned 26 on a Wednesday. Nothing grand, just another day in a house where birthdays had long ago stopped meaning anything, at least for me. But still, I allowed myself one small hope. I bought a cake on my lunch break, chocolate fudge with little white sugar roses. I picked it up from the corner bakery near my office and paid for it with my own money, just like I had done for Evan's birthday 2 months earlier when I surprised him with a catered dinner and a gift card to the gaming store he liked. I got home around 6. My mom was heating up leftovers. My dad was in his recliner watching a rerun of some courtroom reality show. Evan was scrolling through his phone at the kitchen table. I held the cake box in both hands and said, trying to sound light, "Hey, I brought dessert." No one looked up. My mom mumbled something about already having eaten too much. My dad said, "You didn't have to do all that," in the same tone you might use when someone brings you the wrong sandwich. Evan didn't say anything at all. I set the cake down on the counter and stood there for a moment, unsure what to do with my hands. Dinner was quiet. Reheated spaghetti. Evan slurped noisily. My dad griped about his back pain. My mom nodded along. I barely touched my food. Afterward, my dad turned down the TV volume and cleared his throat. "Family talk," he said, eyes on me. Something inside me sank. "Look," he started, "you've been living here for years now, and we appreciate the help, of course we do." He didn't mean that. "But you're 26 now, and it's time to think about your future. You can't just keep coasting like this, living off us, taking up space." "Living off you?" I said quietly. He waved his hand. "You know what I mean. You've got your job. That's good. You should be moving out, figuring life out on your own. That's what adults do." I looked at my mom. She kept her gaze down, fiddling with the edge of her napkin. "I've been paying rent," I said. My voice was calm, steady. "I've been paying the electric bill, the Wi-Fi, the phone line. I bought Evan a new set of tires last winter when he couldn't afford them." My dad shrugged. "We didn't ask you to." I blinked. Evan looked up, smirking. "I mean, if you need a place to crash, I've got the futon in the garage apartment." There it was, my 26th birthday. Celebrated with a plastic plate of microwave noodles, a cold shoulder, and a shove out the door. They didn't yell. They didn't curse or throw things. It wasn't dramatic. It was worse. It was calculated, clean, discarding me like expired milk. I didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't explain. I just stood up, walked to my room, took out the gray backpack I used for work, packed it with my laptop, some clothes, a charger, my toothbrush. I walked past the cake still sitting unopened on the counter. Evan had already taken a spoon to the frosting, dragging it through the top and licking it off absent-mindedly. I opened the front door, and for a moment, no one looked up. Then my dad said, "It's for the best." My mom said nothing. Evan chuckled. And I stepped out into the night. I didn't cry. The sky was overcast, wind cutting against my face as I walked down the driveway. I had no destination, just the sudden clarity that I no longer belonged to them, and maybe never really had. I walked 2 blocks before pulling out my phone. Called Liza, a coworker who once mentioned her spare room was empty. She picked up on the second ring. "You okay?" she asked immediately. "Do you still have that guest room?" I whispered. 15 minutes later, she pulled up in front of a gas station near the edge of our neighborhood. I slid into the passenger seat, my backpack crammed at my feet, and stared straight ahead. She didn't ask questions. She just drove. And I sat there, wrapped in silence. Not the silence that breaks you, but the kind that finally gives you room to breathe. Because in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't the one who needed to grow up. I was just the first one who finally did. Liza's guest room was small, but it had a bed, a lamp, and a door that closed. That was more than I'd had in years. The first 2 nights, I barely slept. My body was used to the sound of Evan's music rattling the wall at midnight, my father's early morning coughing fits, the creak of footsteps outside my door. Here, there was only stillness. It felt unnatural at first, like I'd fallen into someone else's life. I kept waiting for the sound of someone calling my name, but no one did. And for the first time in a long while, I realized I didn't miss it. On the third morning, I opened my laptop. At first, I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe I was looking for something to do besides sit in this foreign space and wonder what would happen next. I clicked open my financial folder, an archive I'd been building for years out of necessity. Password spreadsheets, monthly statements, scanned PDFs of agreements, screenshots of payment receipts. I hadn't really looked at it in one place before. But now, in the quiet light of this unfamiliar room, it came into focus. And what I saw made my stomach turn. Everything was in my name. 3 credit cards, one that my dad used for the big things, one my mom had access to for groceries and meds, one that Evan had basically turned into his personal Amazon wish list. All of them, mine. So was the gas bill, the cable, the internet, the family phone plan, even the car insurance Evan used. Yup, under my profile. I sat there for almost an hour, scrolling through statements, my pulse quickening, the purchases, the late payments, the overdraft fees I had paid off without question. The names on the cards were theirs. But the legal liability, the credit damage, the identity tied to every single account, mine. Flashbacks started trickling in. Dad, 4 years ago, after I signed the first card application. Don't worry, it's temporary. We'll pay you back. You're just helping until we get back on our feet. Mom, when I questioned another late payment, you know how hard it is for your father. He doesn't like asking for help. Evan, when he maxed out his allowance and needed a quick loan, you work in finance or whatever. You'll figure it out. That's what you do, right? I had been the bank, the buffer, the backup plan. And the second I was no longer convenient, they cut me loose. A hollow feeling bloomed in my chest. Not anger, exactly, not even betrayal. Clarity. I wasn't part of their family. I was their infrastructure. But here's the thing about infrastructure. When you take it away, things fall apart. I grabbed my bag and went to the local branch of the bank I used for all 3 credit cards. Sat across from a woman named Janine, who wore a bright blue scarf and had a voice that made you feel like you were sitting across from someone who truly listened. I told her everything. Showed her the names on the cards, the charges, the balances, the addresses tied to each. They're not authorized users, I said. They don't have co-signing power. I opened the accounts. They just had the physical cards. Janine raised an eyebrow. And you're the one who's been making payments? For years. She looked over her glasses and gave a short nod. Then you have full control. You can freeze the accounts, change the passwords, remove any access. Do you want to proceed? I hesitated. Not because I doubted my right, but because for so long I had been programmed to protect them, even when they hurt me. That hesitation lasted exactly 3 seconds. Yes, I said, freeze all of them. That night, I sat on the edge of the guest bed and opened each account one by one. Click, freeze card number 1. Click, freeze card number 2. Click. Card number 3, Evans, freeze and permanently disable. Then came the bills. I logged into the gas provider's portal, disabled autopay, removed my bank account. I did the same with the cable, the phone plan, and the electricity. Within 20 minutes, their monthly lifelines, things they had taken for granted, were gone. I changed passwords, deleted stored payment methods, revoked any linked phone numbers that weren't mine. I didn't send a message, didn't leave a warning, just let the silence speak for me. And when I closed my laptop, the only thing I felt was relief. Not revenge, not pride. Just the kind of clean, cool calm that comes after a fever finally breaks. They had built their lives on my back. Now, they'd finally feel the weight of my absence. The first message came 2 days later. I was eating toast in Liza's kitchen, still in my pajamas, scrolling through job listings when my phone buzzed. Why isn't the power working? I stared at the screen for a long moment, then set it face down on the counter. 20 minutes later, another ping. Did you cancel the card? We can't get gas. Dad's gonna be furious. Then 5 minutes after that, Averylyn, please. Just call me. Let's talk. She never once asked if I was okay, never mentioned my birthday, never apologized, just panic. Pure, self-interested panic. I didn't answer. By noon, the messages shifted tone. What did you do? We can fix this. You're being emotional. Don't make a scene you'll regret. I hope you realize what you're doing to this family. No accountability, just veiled threats dressed in logic. He still thought I could be reasoned with. Still thought I was the same girl who would cave the second he raised his voice. He didn't know I was already gone. Then came Evan. Voice message after voice message. His tone wasn't desperate. It was enraged. You're ruining everything. You think this is funny? You think this is how adults act? Grow the hell up, Averylyn. You're acting like a spiteful little brat. I listened to them all once. Then I blocked his number, and theirs. The quiet afterward was like a balm. A week passed. No word. Then I saw him. My father. He showed up at my job. I was working late at the office, taking on a few extra hours of admin support for a small project, when I noticed a figure hovering outside the glass entryway. At first, I didn't recognize him. He looked smaller, thinner somehow, a little slumped. He came in when the door buzzed open for someone else, made straight for my desk. Averylyn, he said with a forced smile, like we were old friends bumping into each other at the grocery store. Let's talk. I stood up immediately. Sir, I said, loud enough for the receptionist and security to hear, you're not allowed here. I need you to leave. He blinked. Don't make a scene, he said through gritted teeth. I picked up the desk phone. Within moments, the building's private security was walking him back outside. He didn't fight, just looked at me like I was a stranger. That night, I sent them one email. No subject line, no greeting, just a single sentence. You told me I was just a burden. Now you'll learn how heavy I really was. I didn't expect a response. I didn't want one. 2 days later, I overheard a conversation in the break room. A woman from HR was talking to another coordinator. You hear about that family over on Westridge? Power cut off, car got repossessed, and now they're being evicted. Rough. I didn't say anything, just sipped my coffee, but later I looked it up. Public eviction notices are online in my city, and sure enough, there was their address. Final warning issued. Court filing underway. Unpaid rent for over 60 days. I checked the insurance account linked to Evan's car. Lapsed. I checked the overdue utilities. Unpaid. No active payment methods listed. Late fees piling up. They had no access. No way back in. Evan had picked up part-time shifts delivering food, but that wasn't enough. The card he used for gas? Frozen. The line he used for his phone GPS? Disconnected. Even the Netflix account I had once set up? Gone. They were unraveling, piece by piece, and I felt nothing. No glee, no revenge high, no triumphant music swelling in my chest, just clarity. They had built their lives like a house of cards, stacked on top of my effort, my credit, my silence. And I had pulled my name from the base. Now it was all falling down. One evening I went for a walk. The breeze was sharp, autumn creeping in at the edges of the air. I hadn't meant to, but my steps took me past the old neighborhood, past the rows of cookie-cutter homes where nothing really changed, where people parked in the same spots and waved at the same neighbors and mowed their lawns like rituals. And there it was, my childhood home, dark. The porch light was off, no glow from the windows. The driveway was empty. I stood there for a long time, across the street, my hands tucked into the pockets of my coat. No voices inside, no shadows moving past the curtains, no sounds from the old TV my dad kept at full volume. Just silence. Finally, a silence that matched my own. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. The studio wasn't much. A fourth-floor walk-up with peeling paint near the windows and a heater that wheezed like it had asthma. The walls were a dull beige, the bathroom faucet dripped every 6 seconds, and the oven took 20 full minutes to preheat. But it was mine. There was no one waiting in the hallway to scold me about groceries, no one questioning where I'd been or what I'd spent. I could stay out as late as I wanted, leave dishes in the sink, eat cereal for dinner. And that freedom? It was better than any luxury. I took on a few side gigs in digital bookkeeping, small local businesses that needed help cleaning up their finances or managing invoices. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid. Slowly, I started stacking a savings account that no one else could touch. No co-signers, no linked accounts, no we'll pay you back, just mine. At Liza's suggestion, I started therapy. I wasn't sure what I expected at first. Maybe to be told I was overreacting, that things weren't that bad. Instead, my therapist, Miranda, listened to me for 45 minutes straight during our first session and then said quietly, "You do realize none of that was normal, right?" I blinked, because deep down I hadn't. I thought what I'd endured was just what family was. I thought caretaking and guilt and silence were part of growing up. But the longer we talked, the more I started to understand. That what I experienced wasn't love. It was dependence, conditional affection, manipulation wrapped in expectation. Week by week, I began to peel back the layers. The fear, the self-blame, the voice that always told me I owed everyone everything. And with each session, I got a little quieter inside. Not numb, not empty, peaceful. At work, I let Liza in slowly. She wasn't the kind of friend who pushed. She was the kind who brought me coffee on the mornings she knew I hadn't slept, who sent me stupid memes to make me laugh, who offered her couch without expecting gratitude in return. She reminded me what friendship without agenda looked like. I started saying no more often. No to overtime when I needed rest. No to running errands for people who never reciprocated. No to the 3 different texts my brother sent from 3 different burner numbers, all with the same pitiful message. Can we just talk? You're ruining everything. Block. 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 I didn't owe them access. I didn't owe them closure. I owed myself peace. When my 27th birthday rolled around, I didn't tell anyone at work. I took the day off, drove to a bakery on the far side of town and picked out the prettiest lemon raspberry cake I'd ever seen. I bought it with my own card. Wrote my name on the receipt. Then I drove to the beach. It was overcast and breezy, the sand cool under my feet. I laid out a small blanket, sat with my shoes off, and ate a slice of that cake while watching the tide roll in and out. No one sang, no one interrupted, no one forgot, and I felt more celebrated than I ever had before. That afternoon, I opened my notebook and jotted down 5 truths I never wanted to forget again. 1, my needs are not a burden. 2, love without respect is not love. 3, saying no doesn't make me unkind. 4, guilt is not proof of goodness. 5, I am not responsible for fixing anyone but myself. Later that year, I signed up to volunteer at a youth nonprofit that offered free financial literacy workshops. It started small, 2 Saturday sessions helping teenagers open their first savings accounts. Then it grew. Budgeting classes, credit building advice, how to recognize financial abuse. I found myself standing in front of a room full of 16-year-old girls, explaining how co-signing can cost you years of recovery, how boundaries are a form of protection, not punishment. I told them, no one should ever be trapped by someone else's money. They listened. One girl came up to me afterward and said, my mom uses my account for everything. I didn't even know that was bad. I nodded. It's not your fault, but it's not your forever either. She smiled, and for the first time I realized, maybe all that I went through could mean something more than pain. Maybe it could become a seed, a warning, a bridge, something useful, something healing. Not just for me, but for someone still stuck in the storm I'd walked out of. It had been almost a year since I left. The silence had grown so steady, so full of clarity, that when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize, I almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick it up. It was my mother's voice. Shaky, tired, unfamiliar in its vulnerability. Your father's in the hospital, she said, like it was a fact I was supposed to feel something about. Evan's gone. I don't know where. I'm all alone. There was a pause. Then, can you help? I stared at the wall for a long time after I hung up. Not angry, not sad, just weighing what this moment really was. It wasn't an invitation. It wasn't a redemption arc. It was a door I could walk through, one last time, not to return, but to leave properly. So I went. Not with flowers, not with hope, with boundaries like armor and truth as my compass. The hospital was cold, fluorescent, the kind of place that makes even the strongest people look small. My mother met me in the lobby. She looked thinner, her eyes ringed with purple shadows. She reached for me like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to. I let her hug me, just once. Then I followed her upstairs. My father was in a bed, hooked to monitors, his face slack and pale. He looked older than I remembered, shrunk by time and the weight of his own pride. He opened his eyes when I walked in, and for a brief second, something flickered across his face. Regret, shame, resentment, maybe all 3. I didn't think you'd come, he said. I didn't come for you, I replied. I came for me. He didn't respond. The silence between us was heavy, but not unbearable. I'd carried far worse. I hear Evan's gone, I added after a moment. My mom answered for him. He left about 2 months ago. took what was left of the savings, tried to take out another loan in your name. I felt something cold and familiar crawl up my spine. I blocked all those channels a long time ago, I said. He didn't get far. My father shifted in the bed, his jaw tightening. He still couldn't say the words, the ones I would never get from him. I didn't need them. My mother moved closer, sat on the edge of the chair beside me, and clutched my hand like a lifeline. We didn't know, she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. We didn't know how much we needed you until everything fell apart. I let her cry, let her hold my hand. Then I pulled it gently away. I knew, I said, voice calm. That's why I left. I stood. Neither of them tried to stop me. No final speech, no desperate apologies, just the hum of machines and the quiet acknowledgement that the version of me they once controlled no longer existed. I walked out of that hospital into the afternoon sun, and for the first time in my life, I felt light. No tears, no guilt, just air in my lungs, and my own steps beneath me. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, hands clenched, breathing shallow. The dreams are vague, half memories, half shadow, but the feelings are always the same. Being unheard, unseen, unworthy. Being the girl in the hallway again, holding a stack of bills, listening to the TV drown out her voice. I used to think healing meant never having those moments again. Now I know healing just means they don't own you anymore. I've had nights where I sat on the edge of my bed, wondering if I overreacted, wondering if walking away made me selfish. Years of being told I was too much, too quiet, too dramatic, too sensitive, too cold, too needy. It sticks, but it doesn't stay. Not anymore. Because now I feel full. Not because someone pours into me, but because I learned how to pour into myself. I plant herbs on my fire escape, basil, rosemary, and a little pot of mint that I baby like it's my own child. They catch the morning sun just right and smell like fresh possibility. Every Sunday, I make banana pancakes. No one else to feed. No one else to judge. Just me, a spatula, and a drizzle of maple syrup that I don't ration anymore. I keep my favorite jazz station playing low in the mornings because I like the way it makes my apartment feel like a coffee shop in a city that finally learned how to breathe. I've replaced the soundtrack of their voices with mine. And the silence doesn't scare me anymore. It comforts me. I used to think family meant obligation, a tether you couldn't cut, a debt you were born into. Now I know family should mean respect, not endurance. I forgave them. Not because they asked, not because they deserved it, but because I refused to let them take up permanent space in my heart. There are people out there who will never say sorry, who will never admit what they did, who will convince themselves that you left for no reason. Let them. You don't need their understanding to reclaim your peace. I made space in my life for joy, for stillness, for late-night walks and sunlit kitchens and a fridge stocked with my favorite creamer. Maybe I didn't get a party on my 26th birthday, but I gave myself a gift far greater, freedom. And that was worth every slammed door and burned bridge. The other night, I walked to the corner ice cream stand after dinner. The sky was streaked with the colors only summer can paint: lavender, gold, soft peach. I held my keys in one hand and a waffle cone in the other. No one waited for me to get home. No one asked where I'd been, and I didn't feel lonely. I felt alive. I used to think I needed them, but they were just noise, and silence, it turns out, is beautiful. Have you ever had to walk away from people who were supposed to love you, but only took from you? Drop your story in the comments. Let's support each other, because sometimes family isn't blood. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, comment, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for being here. You matter, and you're never too late to choose yourself.